Good morning and welcome. I should be more mindful of my morning. What's happening? Buenos dias. All the other things that we can put in place for the terrible oxymoron that starts our day. This is Robert Phoenix, and you are here as part of the Astro Weather. And it looks like Melissa Stanton has a question about the course. So, Melissa, I have an astrological course, by the way. It's quite good. Melissa, if you have a question, I'm just going to put my email in the chat. Feel free to email me. It's that easy. That easy. Ask and ye shall receive. Ask away, Melissa. There you go. All right. How is everybody as we whistle our way towards Armageddon? Hey, we got an Ani Brito sighting. What's happening, Ani Ma? Good to see you. Yeah, whistling towards Armageddon. So 15 minutes. I'm going to do my best to pull back the covers on Israel and on. I have a somewhat controversial take on the subject that got me into some hot water yesterday over on Twitter X, but it's something that I'll get into during today's flame. By the way, there's a link for that inside of the show notes if you want to dive in and hear more about that conversation. So we'll do that at 9:11 a.m. In the meantime, we are almost out of Aries. Sort of like you got a can here, right? And you poured it out, and it's like, oh, the last drops of Aries are in there. The final drops of Aries, and we move into theoretically a more stable time with the Sun in Taurus. I don't know about you guys, but this Aries season has been pretty volatile. Pretty volatile. And one would assume that we would have more stability with the Sun moving into Taurus, but we'll take a peek at that today as we close out the month of Aries or the season of Aries. A few things that you may want to do while you're here before we jump in. You may want to hit that thumbs up button if you like the content. If you have not subscribed, please do so. And if you have subscribed, please do so, because in many cases you will be unsubscribed. And I have been shadow banned on this platform for quite a long time. People see my videos, but it's not like they're promoted heavily across YouTube. And there are many instances where people are unceremoniously unsubscribed to this channel. And it's always helpful if you hit the bell. There's a little bell there. And it will remind you when Astro Weather and other programming like the Friday Farcast and a new show that we're going to be cooking up here called Astro Dads. And I believe Astro Dads is going to debut next Saturday morning. Now, it will not be a live show. So it'll be a show that's going to be recorded, but it will go live on Saturday morning. And I will be in the chat most of the time for the show. And that's going to be with myself and Ferris Gallion, who is a fine man, father of two, a student of astrology, and we decided to, look at astrology through the lens of two fathers, and he's at the beginning of that cycle for himself, and I'm kind of on the other side of it, and we'll look at things like the Taurus child, the Gemini child, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and also parenting styles as well through astrology. So I think it'll be a good show. It won't be don't know. I don't think it's going to be like super sexy and conspiratorial or you know, code breaking or revelatory, but it'll be good. It'll be like a good Sunday meal, except you'll get to have it on Saturday morning, nutritious Saturday morning breakfast. Um, and of course, if you'd like to buy me a cup of coffee, we have the link for the coffee in the show notes as well. And that is in lieu of super chats because I have been demonetized and demonetized here for quite a while. All right, let's get into some astrology. Where are we? There we go. Is this it? Is this it? Is this what we're looking for? Hold on. Give me one sec here. I had to. Where is this thing? It's the second time I've done this. Yesterday, over on 15 Minutes, we played the main ingredient with Everybody Plays the Fool. You guys know that song? It's in my head now. I can't get it out. It's very hooky. All right, we're almost there. I pulled this thing off my. Let's see what's today. Today is the 17th. There we go. Pulled this off off the website, put it on my desktop already. Once, actually twice. And here we go. Let's do this. And let's pull this off. Right there, lives there. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And by the way, I hope your day is shaping up accordingly. And if you're in another part of the space time continuum, those same wishes extend to you as well. All right. There we go. Everything is in place now. Bada bang. That's us today. So we've kind of moved a bit out of T Squareville and are more in the broken T square. Now, as you can see, the sun is inching closer towards that hard square with Pluto coming up. And these are, Aquarius and Scorpio, I'm sorry, Taurus are both fixed signs. And you're getting like the intensity of the fixed sign square right at the beginning. So let me go back to last year. Let me just think about this. I think Pluto was in Aquarius last year at this time, if I'm not mistaken, because it had gone in and around sometime around March, and then it retrograded back out during some pride shit, which was I don't know, I think it might have been June, and it retrograded back into Capricorn. So I think we've been here before once again with that Sun Pluto script, but again, everything's in a different place. Pluto's in a different place. It's at 2 degrees versus 0, right? And so that's different in and of itself. And there are other planets in the mix as well. And it feels very intractable. Very, very intractable. Like irresistible force meets immovable object. That's kind of what we're dealing with this Sun Pluto square. And there's a lot going on with things like the allocation of money and side deals. I'll give you an example. We'll use the sign of Aquarius because this person is an Aquarian. Mike Johnson, who is the Speaker of the House, is under fire. And Marjorie Taylor Greene wants him out. Now she has an ally, kind of an unlikely ally in some ways, although ideologically perhaps not too far apart. Uh, their style is quite different, and that is Thomas Massey. So he is now on Marjorie Taylor Greene's side because Mike Johnson is cutting deals. Like he's doing all these fucking side deals. And that's one of the reasons why they got Kevin McCarthy out in the first place. So really what they did is they replaced him with a charismatic snake because that's what Mike Johnson is. He's one of these charismatic cultists, and he is, running little side deals. So, how does that relate to the Sun-Pluto square? And we've reached a limit. This is what happens when the sun goes into Taurus and it hits that hard square with Pluto. Like there is a limit, and we're about to see what that limit is. We're about to see just how far or how much people are going to just dig their heels and say enough, right? Because it feels like we're coming very close to that kind of situation. Now, keep in mind there are all these other factors that are in the mix right now. And again, we're talking about from a mundane or collective level. First of all, you have the ongoing trials of one Donald John Trump. Apparently, going to see his son's graduation is in violation of some court order, which I cannot even begin to fathom. So you have the Trump drama that's going on. That's just the Trump drama. And there are a lot of people that are affected by that and impacted by that and saying, well, he's a victim and this is unfair and they're targeting him. And all those things are kind of true. I'm not going to dispute that fact. So it's getting under people's skin. Now you've got people in New York City. Again, we're just looking at everything. Like think of this as a pressure cooker and all the ingredients that are in the pressure cooker. Now you have people in New York City who are quote unquote migrants, and they are no longer in their hotels. They are on the streets because, well, the weather's changed. Theoretically, it's not as cold. So, they could go out and hang out and sleep in the parks. Hell, it was better than the parks they were sleeping in before they got here. So they should be damn lucky that those parks are nicer. That's going to ratchet up. You're going to see a bunch of people in places like New York and Chicago or wherever else they've been flown into or bust, and they are going to combust. They are not going to like it. So there's, that's another little piece to the Sun-Pluto square. Already mentioned Israel and Iran and the psychodrama, and I call it a psychodrama, that's happening there. I'm not fully bought into this idea that these two countries are in a state of hate with one another. That's a different discussion, and that'll be on the show after this. But there's that, right? There is that as well. There's any number of things right now that are all sort of reaching this boiling point. And we are at this moment with the Sun-Pluto square where it's almost like the Peter Finch character in Network who gets on TV, Howard Beale. I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. We're getting ready to get very close to that point. Very close to getting to that point. Now, that's on the collective level. On the individual level, I think that there are people who are and have been in a prolonged state of stagnation, in a kind of a prolonged state of being functionally comatose. It's not really the word I wanted to use, but I'll use it anyway. And they're tired of it. They're tired of it. I mean, it feels to me like there is this overriding sense that people are just trying to get by, to just get through. You know, that the days are filled with stories that are laced with apocalyptic woe, right? I mean, if you tune in and just pay attention to the news and even some of the alternative news, that's what you're going to get. And so again, I've talked about this before. How do people measure their lives up against something like that? I mean, these are really unprecedented times. The 90s were a dark period of time, but at no point during the 90s did people, except for myself, look around and say, hey, we're kind of fucked here. Or the Clintons ran a very corrupt government, but the economy was doing very well. .com takes off. So you had the financial soporific to keep people pacified. We don't have that right now, right? So there's no, there's not a lot of low hanging fruit for people to say, oh, yeah, the tide is going to turn, or tomorrow's going to be a better day, or the world is headed into a really good place. Not really, right? So again, we're looking at the big picture and then how it sifts and settles into the individual picture. So as the sun moves closer towards its square with Pluto, I think tensions are going to rise, and there is a bit of a breaking point here. You know, and who's going to blink first? I'm not talking about you and your life. You know, the what's going on, although that is part of it as well. But what's going on out there, right? And it's amazing to see how many actors just continue to go along with the program without ever really breaking down or what's the word I'm looking for? Breaking down or breaking character. So a lot of these people are just characters. They're just actors, but they generally stay in character mode for the most part, right? With this upcoming Sun Pluto square, I don't think that that's possible. I think that people are going to sort of break from their character. So just keep your eyes open over the next couple days, where especially out there where people reveal themselves in ways that they've never revealed themselves before. I also feel like there's going to be a rising awareness around untimely death, which we have spoken of many times on this program and on others. Remember, Aquarius rules science. It rules science. And Pluto is all about death and transformation. And Taurus is all about organic life. When we think of Taurus, we think of the garden. We think of the sheep and the cow, right? It's an agrarian sign. And so what we're seeing here is a conflict between the natural and organic world and the synthetic world. We're seeing that. And we have the receipts are in. And there are plenty of examples of people who have departed from this mortal coil far too soon. And that no one is actually really addressing it in a significant way. I feel like that's about to change. When we get into this Sun Pluto square, it becomes evident that there is this kind of radical ingress from the synthetic world into the natural world. And it's a non fit. It is a complete non fit. So, as a result of that, I could see over the next few days, particularly as we get into the weekend, maybe Friday, where people are trying to get home and resume their lives after their, their commutes or whatever, that you would have some of these groups like Extinction Rebellion, a lot of these climate change groups. I could see a kind of a spike in activity with them over the next few days. Money is also going to be a part of the discussion. Money, the allocation of resources. We've already talked about Mike Johnson and the side deals. That Sun-Pluto square, it's like, whoa, enough already, okay? Enough. Taurus is generally a fiscally conservative sign, right? So when the sun moves into that Taurian ingress right here and squares Pluto, drastic measures are at hand. Here's the other thing we're starting to stare down. Within 3 days, we are literally in the days of Molech. And that coincides with the sun at 0-1 Taurus squaring Pluto in Aquarius. And these are bad days, right? These are the days of sacrificial burning. And when we get into a Sun-Pluto square, it can be more than evident that this is what's happening. And all we have to do is look around. I mean, go back in time. So you have Waco. I think it was at April 21st. You have Waco. You had the Oklahoma City bombing. You had Columbine. Those are just three right off the top of my head. If I went through 420, 419, 420, 421, those 3 days, if I did a little Wikipedia dive on that, you'd be blown away by how many major events, and especially events that deal with explosions and fire and violence and sacrifice are part of this time. And then here we are, right on time, Sun-Pluto square. So hang on to your hat. Like, I think that the next 4 to 5 days are going to be plenty stimulating and maybe even overstimulating in a lot of ways. Again, it feels a little like fight or flight. Taurus wants to dig its heels in, wants to be safe, and the score with Pluto is indicative of a threat. Now, I had heard that the NSA was going to take over the internet in about 3 days, which would coincide with that Sun-Pluto square. And I think I heard this through a tweet by Edward Snowden. I don't know if it's true or not, but again, Pluto's in Aquarius. That's the internet, and the sun is in Taurus, and it's squaring off and taking charge, right? So factor that in as well. Today we have the moon in the second decan of Leo, which puts it in the Sagittarian decan. And of course, we have a square going on with Jupiter and Uranus. And, we did a little dive into the Leo moon yesterday. So in the Sagittarian decan, it has a bit of a, how do I say this? There's a slight zealotry, between the 10th and the 20th degrees of Leo. A slight bit of zealotry and religious fervor. And it's also like a moon of high adventure. Like, the moon in Leo isn't always like about high adventure. The moon in Leo is like, hey, let's get the deck chairs out and, let's have some cold drinks and kind of lay like cats in the sun by the pool, right? It's Leo is, for all of its drama and theatrics, is a domestic sign. The fifth house is below the line, right? So it's all about sort of the domestic world and the development of the self. When it moves up into Sagittarius, it loses that domesticity, and it has more of a sense of wanderlust to it as well. Like, what else is out there? What else is out there? And these are interesting degrees, because you get the fixity of the Leo moon with, again, this kind of zealotry and religiosity, or the adamant pursuit of truth and authenticity. Like these degrees between 10 and 20 Leo are all about authentic, right? Damn it, I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to keep it real. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Today, however, as we progress, the moon moves into more of a square with Jupiter and Uranus. And we saw the moon in Leo yesterday, but it wasn't quite in this position yet. Well, today it's, alive on arrival. Watch out for expenditures today. I think today is one of those days where vanity purchases are in the air. It's like, and look, who hasn't been a little bored or down and gone online and bought something? I think we all have at a certain point in time. Today's kind of one of those days. It's kind of one of those days. Just don't buy a timeshare. Please do not invest in a timeshare. It's not a good investment. But there is that today. We're looking for some degree of comfort, right, with a moon square to Jupiter. So we may overspend in order to achieve something or experience something that makes us feel good. And with Uranus square, it's very impulsive, very, very impulsive. And who knows? It might be the exact thing that you need. I'm not here to, um, play bookkeeper or sort of be the moral compass with your budget, right? Every now and then, you have to do something that is off the off the grid, right? And it's like, I'm going to do it. It could be something along the lines of, fuck it, I'm going to book that vacation. I really don't care if it's, bombs over Baghdad, although Baghdad has already been bombed. I'm going to go on that vacation. I don't care. I'm not going to let the world dictate how I'm going to live my life. Right. That's where we are with the moon today. And I don't think it's necessarily bad. There may be a bit of an overcorrection, but one of my favorite sayings of all time is anything that's worth doing is worth overdoing. So that's a very Sagittarian maxim, by the way. So don't, like, if you have a vanity purchase or you do something today and somebody says, what? You did what? You did what? Don't stress out about it. Because what you're really trying to do here, if we back it up and we look at these sextiles going on with Venus and to some degree Mercury, and we have the true node here, what you're really trying to do is experience some immediacy. This is all about immediacy and looking. I wouldn't say it's about denial. I wouldn't call it that. When you get into Neptune squares, you're more into the denial phase or Neptune conjunctions. I would say it's more about feeling alive, right? Feeling alive while the rest, not the rest of the world, because clearly there people that are in the same boat as you, but while a lot of the world is being populated more and more by walking cadavers, so you have to feel alive. And today is one of those days. The moon in Leo, Sagittarius. I'm a human. I'm alive. I count. I matter. Right? And fuck it. I'm getting that vacation package or whatever it is. Just don't buy a timeshare. And there's a very good possibility that if you involve your partner with your decision, it'll be great. That's the one thing that I would say about today. Just let them know that you're going to do it. The element of surprise is always an interesting option. However, it doesn't always go as planned. Now, could you walk it and talk it back if there was some pushback? What I mean by walk it and talk it, I mean like not that you're going to, oh, well, I can get a refund. Not really. No, you just say, hey, look, I'm sorry. I just wanted to surprise you. I thought you might enjoy this early birthday gift, right? So if you actually say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. How would you like to do so and so, or get so and so, or get such and such? Is that a little bit out of our price range? Is that a little bit rich for our budget? And you look around and you go, well, how many more opportunities are we going to have experiences like this? And yeah, I know it is the short view and the limited view, but it's a worthwhile talking point. Get some good stuff in now. Soak it up now. What else do we have here? We've got some sextile action with Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter, Uranus, which has been going on for a while. And I really feel like that this is again all about autonomy and sovereignty and understanding that you have the power to make choices and kind of run your own ship. Right. This to me, this is like the commander on the high seas with Mars, Saturn, and Pisces, and then sextiling Jupiter and Uranus. And look around and see where you want to go, how you want to navigate, where are your resources. That's another thing too. I think that there's that uh, thing that we've all done once or twice, which is to stick our hands down between the cushions of the couch to see if we can find any quarters or nickels or whatever. Right? That's a metaphor for this sextile today. So look around in areas that you can invest in, and they don't have to be huge amounts of money, right? And investing means any number of different things. You could invest in like a system to catch water, which would be quite good, by the way, with this sextile, right? So this is another nice little opening to sort of take more control of your environment and look at worthwhile investments. And again, we want to stretch sort of the meaning of what an investment is. It could be a monetary investment. It could be any number of things that could shore your world up a little bit better. Okay, let me get back here and let me get into the banner section, the Bruce Banner section. And of course, this is where we talk about True Hemp Science and my good buddy Chris over at truehempscience.com, where if you spend $100 or more and type in 15MINS, guess what you'll get? You'll get a free goodie bag. $150 more, get your free shipping, and there is always a 30-day money-back guarantee on any product that you purchase from Chris. You can also reach out to him, make an appointment, and he'll be able to walk and talk you through your best CBD choices. So your True Hemp Science star of the day is none other than, drum roll please, JP Morgan. Now I had an opportunity. I could have gone with William Holden, whom I actually really like. William Holden had so many affairs in Hollywood, it's not even funny. Anyway, I felt like Morgan's chart in a lot of ways would be more illustrative than William Holden's chart. And when you look at Morgan's chart, I mean, you can see the roots of the robber baron. It's all down here in the second house, right? All down here in the second house. Sun in Aries, Venus in Aries, Pluto in Aries, Mercury in Aries, Ceres in Aries. That's a lot of fucking Aries. He's got Pallas in Aries. That Pallas is going to allow him to spot out trends before anybody else does, right? Like he kind of had both Edison and Tesla on a string when it came to energy, right? So he was very good at understanding opportunities. What's interesting about him is that he, before there was a Federal Reserve, he was America's bank. That's how much money J.P. Morgan had accrued, and he basically came from a family of bankers and financiers. That's his, like, his shoot in the world. So he would lend the United States of America money. And you can see this down here, right? You can see this with the True Node in Taurus. Like, he is all about the assets. South Node in Scorpio, even Saturn in Scorpio in the eighth house, almost ninth house ingress. To me, Saturn in Scorpio plays the role of the bank in the eighth house. And that's him, right? That's the highest planet in his chart. And I think he was the definition of ruthless. He was ruthless. I mean, they were all ruthless, but he was really ruthless. And there aren't as many people who have fingerprints on the 20th century in the same way that he does, right? So he winds up being involved in a number of, ultimately, scams. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he's even connected to the sinking of the Titanic or the Olympic. He, like I said and mentioned before, he had Edison and Tesla on a string. Railroad builder. This guy is probably the biggest of the robber barons. And he was involved in everything: steel, railroad, energy, power. Also accrued one of the greatest art collections at that time. So he was very, very much into the acquisition of assets. And you could see where eventually, Pluto would move. Like, there's a really interesting time when he's born, because eventually, 7 years from here, right from here, Uranus is in Aries. And then 7 years after that, it's in Taurus. So 14 years after he's born, Pluto and Uranus are right there on the cusp of his sun. And it's right during that time, which is the late 1840s, 1848, 1849, where he's really starting to, like, come into his own. He's 22 years old. He's got the banking pedigree. And by the time Pluto and Uranus move into Taurus, he's ready, right? He's ready to go. And he's ready to, along with the other robber barons, reshape or shape the 20th century for better or worse. What's interesting is he has this Aquarius rising. And there was some strange misfortune that happened in his life. One of the things that happened was he married fairly young. I think he married around 22. And he married a young woman who was apparently quite pretty, but also not well physically, and was quite frail. So we have this moon in Virgo, and was not in his seventh house. And she winds up, I think, dying 2 or 3 years after they're married. She doesn't live very long. And you can kind of see this, right? Like, his moon is afflicted. Not only is it afflicted because it's in Virgo, but it also squares Chiron, and then there's that Uranus opposition. So when you get into that Uranus opposition, on this axis, right, relationships become unstable. You're looking for stability, but they're always going to be unstable because of Uranus in the first house and its connection to the moon. And the moon here being an immutable position or an immutable sign. So then eventually he remarries and becomes known for having mistresses. Like, that becomes his thing. So he travels all over the world. And back then, it was not out of the question that a man would have, especially a successful man, would have a mistress. It was all very quote unquote secretive, right? But that to me is in a lot of ways the byproduct of a man who had an insatiable appetite. And that's what you get here with this Mars Jupiter conjunction in the sign of Leo. Now, it's in the sixth house, which gives him a bit of a workaholic kind of quality and always driving for more and more and more and more and more. And, right, what else is going on here? Well, we got a Pluto trine to Mars. We got a Venus trine to Mars. This man had big appetites, big appetites. He also, as he grew older, that big schnoz of his became more and more disfigured, which is an interesting story, particularly since he's got all these Aries factors in his chart. So this is somebody who was driven, clearly driven. And I don't think anything was enough for JP Morgan. He wasn't a guy that was ever going to sit back and say, I'm good. I'm good. I'm tapped out. I've got everything I need. He was always in a relentless pursuit of more assets and resources. And he's unusual, right? He's an Aquarius rising. He's got Uranus ruling planet in the first house. So strange things will happen to him every now and then, like the sudden death of his wife. And there's more in his history to that. And again, he's, I believe, more than anything, JP Morgan is a modernist. He's doing everything to harness the power of the future. And some of you might be followers and fans of people like John Levi and Michelle Gibson and Mind Unveiled. A lot of the Tartarian sort of discoverers, right? And I don't think it would be out of the question that somebody like J.P. Morgan, one of the men in the tall hats, probably had some understanding about what had gone on here and had the ability to tap into whatever available resources and energy that the quote unquote inheritors had at their disposal. Now, he's born 13 years prior to 1850. And in 1850, we have the Great Migrations from all over the world. So he's already here. He's 13 years old, and he's watching the arrival of the starving, Irish potato farmers. He's watching the arrival of the Germans. He's seeing the influx of all these new Americans. And I guarantee you that at a young age, he knew that there was going to be money to be made based on providing vital services for the emergent population. And those vital services included power and transportation, which is where Morgan makes a lot of his dough. And again, one of the reasons why I think he's a futurist is because of Saturn up here and the trine to Uranus. So what he's doing is he is looking at experimental technologies. Now, remember, this is the guy that supposedly sat down with Tesla and looked at his tower in Passaic, New Jersey, and saw it create energy out of nothing. And he basically said, well, how do you charge people for this? And Tesla says, you don't. And Morgan basically says, great. Well, let me buy it from you. I'll give you a good price for it. What does he do? He sits on the technology. And then who gets promoted is Thomas Edison. Right. So he understands where things are going in terms of providing these fundamental resources like power and light and energy and steel Like that's really where he is, plus money lending. But he's not going to simply do it for the good of the people, right? Because at the end of the day, he is firmly entrenched in that second house. And his whole quest in this lifetime was about money and power. Bottom line, end of story. Did he compromise his morals along the way? You bet your ass he did. Saturn square Neptune, Saturn square Mars, Saturn square Jupiter. He fucked people over. You know, he was not necessarily a trustworthy person. Even these squares going on here, right? With what's he got? He's got that Venus, he's got that Mercury square to Neptune. So he's a liar. And not everybody that has a Mercury Neptune square in their chart is a liar. Sometimes you're a lie too. I think he's a liar, right? And he has Neptune in the 12th house, which I think is a really good and interesting placement for Neptune. It's in its dignity in the 12th house. And it's in Aquarius. So he's going to be like his spirituality or his religion or his faith is the future, right? He is sensing into where things are going. Now, I don't have any information that would confirm this, but I would not be surprised if Morgan consulted with psychics and intuitives with that Neptune in the 12th house, particularly as it relates to future trends. Again, he's all about the future. He's all about the future. Yes, he is capitalizing on all of these immense resources that are available during that time period. But he's doing it not because he wants to dominate the present. Morgan's got an eye on the future. And even to this day, right, there is a financial firm with his name on it, JP Morgan. You know, and whether or not he said, I'm going to have this financial institution named after me, so my name will continue into the future. But I guarantee you, this was a guy who was aware of his place in history and wanted to be remembered. And that's in and of itself a form of futurism. A bit of an imbalanced chart. I mean, this guy was, you know, he was on a quest. And there were other areas of his life that ultimately suffered. And when he did remarry, he married a woman basically that would want to spend time in the suburbs. She didn't want to travel with him on trains or steamships. So, you know, married a plain Jane. Moon in Virgo, sextile Saturn. That was a relationship that was functional. In the meantime, you know, he had his little hotties on the side that he would travel with. You know, it's kind of how he figured shit out. Anyway, a guy who, for all his ability to scrape out a long-lasting legacy using mostly the materials, the metals, and the minerals of the earth, he has a surprisingly light earth element in his chart. He has the true node in Taurus, which counts for a lot. He has the moon in Virgo. And that's it. Now, that said, all that Aries in his second house is weighty. Is weighty. And this is a guy who will, he would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. Nothing. He would do anything in his power to get what he wanted. And that's all here. That is all here. It's also interesting too, like with Chiron and Gemini, how he was dealing with both Tesla and Edison, right? And trying to manage like the future power between the two of them. Anyway, there's your True Hemp Science star of the day, the one and only J. Pierpont Morgan. And with it, that brings us to the end of today's weather. Ta-da. So if you'd like to continue the conversation, please join us over on 15 minutes. link in the show notes. In the meantime, use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to step in what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Blessings to each and every one of you. Have the most high day you can. I'll see you back here tomorrow with the Friday forecast. Is that right? What are we tomorrow? Hold on. It's my day. This is Wednesday. No, we got Astro Weather tomorrow and then the Friday forecast. That Monday threw me off. All right. We'll see you guys later. Bye for now.